Hi, welcome to City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski, and I would like to welcome our mayor, Mike Cahill, to the show, Your Honor.
Hey, Walt. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. And I know that you've just come into the studio from outside where the spring weather, although it's a little bit wet, spring is in the air, and with that comes road work.
Okay.
Can you share with our viewers some of the updates? I know there's a lot of stuff going on here in the city. Give us an update on the 1A project, on the Brimble Avenue project, and I know that there are some other planned street pavings. Maybe you can tell us about that as well. So sure. 1A maybe.
Sure. First, you're right. As we sit here, it's a little rainy out, but by the time this airs, it's going to be sunny and springy.
Let's hope so.
And, you know, we've had some paving that was scheduled to start yesterday morning, Monday, which because of the rain we've had to hold off on, and so now we're chasing potholes. So I just would say to people, you know, whether it's rainy, whether it's sunny, whether it's May or August or whatever, you know, please be patient with our road work. Please drive safely. Drive safely everywhere and at all times, but particularly through the construction zones, because we've got people working in the active construction, and we don't want anyone to get flat tires or mess up the front end of their cars. So we all have to be careful. The good thing about road work is when the jobs are done, the roads are much, much better.
Much better.
So let's keep focused on that. The 1A project, which runs from the Beverly-Salem Bridge all the way up Rantoul Street, then Cabot, past Dairy Queen to in front of where the new Beverly Middle School will be, where the former Memorial School is no longer. So that project, it's a big one. It started last fall with a lot of drainage work under the street where they put in new drainage lines. And now the full depth reconstruction has begun. And that's what's going to happen the whole length of the corridor. Taking all the pavement out, down, get all the way down underneath, and rip up all the sidewalks and curbing and do it all over.
Wow.
Right now they're working between the front of the new middle school building and Gloucester Crossing.
Right.
And that'll be the focus of the work until probably late June.
Okay.
When they're done with that, then they'll start down at the bottom end of Rantoul by the Beverly-Salem Bridge and work up
and come back the other way.
for most of the rest of this calendar year. Now, the total project will be done by October of next year. It's essentially
2017.
Yeah, essentially 2 full construction seasons.
Okay.
And it's being, you know, phased and segmented. So it's, as I mentioned, the length of Rantoul, Cabot, also that piece of Elliott from the Walgreens and CVS up to Super Sub is being redone.
Okay.
And on Cabot, from Gloucester Crossing up to the corner of Pickett Street is being redone as well.
Okay.
Up past Bessie Baker baseball field.
Okay.
So that's the scope of the project, and it'll be ongoing for the next year and a half.
Right. Now, do mention to our viewers that the city is not paying for any of this, correct? This is a state project?
Right. With this federal and state money that we get through the TIP process, the Transportation Improvement Plan, which is a state plan, it's federal and state money that builds the roads.
Right.
We, the city, had to pay for the engineering.
Right.
And that's how they work it. Cities and towns pay for the engineering costs. They get approved to get on the TIP, and then when the funding's available for construction.
Yeah, that's an easy investment, right?
And this is about a $20 million job
Right.
of state and federal money.
Right.
And it will be from, you know, storefront or, you know, front of people's lawns, sidewalk, curbing, and street pavement. And there will be bike lanes when we're done. There'll be a lot of improvements, some bump outs to narrow at intersections, so you don't have to walk as far from one side of the street to the other on a crosswalk. So a lot of safety improvements as well.
All right. So now tell us about the Brimble Avenue interchange project.
So the Brimble Ave project, which has been funded with a state economic development grant, that MassWorks grant, about $5 million, that is where you get off the highway at exit 19 at Sawyer Road and Brimble Ave, northbound. It's the 2 new roundabouts, and it's the paving a bit of the way up Sawyer Road, and then up Brimble all the way to the Herrick Street Extension intersection, which is being signalized. We're on target for that job to finish this summer, and working hard every day with the contractor to make sure it does. I will say, one of the real benefits of being in a good economy is that there's more federal and state money for road projects. That we at the local level have more capacity to put our own money to local road and sidewalk work. And it can mean that there's a lot going on at once. Yeah. The flip side is when the economy isn't good, there's not money to spend on these road and sidewalk improvements, and so things, are let go. So we're taking full advantage of the fact that the resources are there. We're doing as much work as we can. As you know, we're putting, in addition to the 1A project and the Brimble Ave project, we're putting about $3 million of our own money
Right.
into our own local roads and sidewalks. And that list of streets that are going to be done this year will appear on the engineering page of our city website soon. No surprises. They've been in queue, and they're projects that we're been looking to get to. An example is Grover Street in Centerville, from Essex Street a little ways down to about Walker Road.
Right.
That's one that's been on tap. We've got work going on really in all wards all around the city.
Right, and that list that the city puts on the website was the result of a lot of people asking and saying, when is my road going to be done, and what's the picking order, what's the priority list. And I must say to you that I take that roundabout, that 2 series of rounds that's here to the studio to BevCam every single day, and I must tell you that it is easy. And I used to always struggle with those left-hand turns, as everybody did. This is so much easier. I haven't had a single problem, a single issue since they put it in.
Well, thanks. And when the project's done, our goal is that every movement will be intuitive and easy to understand. It has been challenging where the project's been partially done, and with the winter coming, we had to activate the roundabouts, and so there have been challenges with that. But as the work gets completed, as the islands get fully constructed, as the signage and the painted lines and directionals in the roadway, everything will become that much more intuitive. And as people get more comfortable driving roundabouts, recognize who has right of way, who doesn't.
That's going to be the big thing.
It all flows. I think that those T intersections with a stop sign and all these left turns across lanes of traffic have been challenging for years and years, and there is a much better flow with the roundabout.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, Your Honor, we know that you are very passionate about the city's playgrounds and beaches, and of course last year the hallmark event, I think, was this wildly successful splash pad that was put up in Lynch Park. Can you tell us, are there any other projects on the board now for our beaches and our parks for this summer?
Yes, so several projects. Ellis Square, right in downtown next to the Unitarian Church, that is construction on rebuilding Ellis Square as a much more enjoyable and usable park. Is going to kick off in the next couple months, and will be completed later this year. It's all poured concrete and pavement. It's not really welcoming.
Yeah.
So it'll be redone as a little downtown pocket park, and then the hope is that we'll program it and have a lot of activity going on there. Dane Street and Lynch Park. This was a grant that Bruce Doig, our director of Community Services and Park and Rec, he got the city, and it's to put handicap ramps down to the water. And I've seen this done in other communities, and it's a wonderful thing. So people who are not not fully ambulatory, can't walk down to the water, can get to the water and enjoy, going in. Okay. So they're somebody can be in their own wheelchair, and they can switch over to a waterproof chair that'll be there and go in and enjoy the ocean. So that'll happen both at Lynch over to the Woodbury Beach, just to the right of the parking lot, and at Dane Street. I'm not sure exactly where they're bringing it down, but bringing it down to the water there as well. 2 other things. The place staying at Dane Street, Josie Marino.
We had her on,
and she's done an amazing job with a lot of supporters in raising money in memory of and honor of her daughter, and to put a whole new play structure in there. And as I understand it, in the next couple of weeks, the several different structures will be delivered, and there'll be a build day. I think it's 3 weeks from now. Yeah. There'll be a build day where professionals come in and instruct all the volunteers on how to put the equipment together. Right. So that'll be brand new and enjoyable. The last thing on parks is, and this is a simple one, the park right next to City Hall. Beautiful, beautiful park. Gets very little use. Yeah. So we put in a little bocce court, not a court. We didn't dig it up and put a full court in. We put in a couple bocce end boxes. And we're also getting some cornhole games, and people will be able to, starting next week, be able to come into City Hall, go to June Kelly, the receptionist at City Hall on the first floor, hand over their driver's license, and take a bocce kit or a bunch of cornhole bean bags and go out and
And
enjoy
play right next
enjoy
to City
playing on the
Hall.
front lawn at City Hall.
Yeah.
And it's just a way to activate a public space and get people to be outside and enjoying and using, using our beautiful public spaces, and that's a beautiful park.
Maybe the city councilors can use, maybe they could do cornhole and decide how to vote on issues.
That's your idea.
Now, switching topics a little bit, I am a member of the city's Economic and Community Development Committee, the so-called ECDC, and of course we get privy to a lot of development projects and things kind of ahead of the curve, and maybe you could tell us about the. One of the interesting things that's happened, there are a lot of interesting job creation, economic development things happening, but the city will be hosting an economic development summit, I think June 1st. Tell us about that, and what are the city's expectations with that?
Sure. Secretary Ash, the State Secretary of Economic Development and Housing, we've been working with him regularly for some time, and last late summer, early fall, he was here. We showed him around at some of our opportunities, and we hit on the idea of this economic summit. And what he recognized is, the city has what they call the state has what they call gateway cities. Some of the cities that face, really significant challenges, cities like Lawrence and Lynn and Holyoke and Fall River and others, and they're called gateway cities. They get a lot of the state's resources and a lot of their focus and attention. He recognizes that a small city like Beverly has we have a lot going for us, but we also have need for support and help in promoting our economic opportunities. And so we came up with the idea of the summit. So the secretary and his office are co-sponsoring it with us, and the plan is to have a couple of hundred developers, investors, realtors, financial institutions from around the region, not just within the state, but throughout the region, to come to Beverly and get a chance to see what we have to offer, what opportunities we have with our downtown. And as we all know, we've got 2 mile-long main streets in our downtown. We've got the Harborfront, we've got the Bass River corridor, which we'll talk a bit about our efforts to rezone. We've got our commercial industrial opportunities up along along the highway, Cherry Hill Park, Sawyer Road, Tozer Road, Brimble, Otis, Dunham, that whole sector, and opportunities for people to invest in creating jobs and bringing more wealth into the community. So that's the goal of that day, is for us to showcase who we are and get more people interested in investing their resources and their dreams in Beverly.
Now this is, I believe, June 1st is a Wednesday, I believe. And it is being held at the Cabot Center for Performing Arts, right? And this is an invitation by invitation, but can the average Beverly citizen just show up there if there's room, or how?
Well, there are 800 plus seats.
Yeah.
So it's a by invitation event in terms of trying to bring out the the people who aren't necessarily plugged into Beverly, who want to see what we have to offer. But certainly anybody who wants to stop in and listen is welcome to.
Okay, and I know BevCam will be there with a crew, with a camera or two, and we'll document this, and then we'll create a program which will air on BevCam after that's completed. Well, thank you for that, Mike. Now, also, as far as ECDC activities, we evaluated a couple of proposals from 2 companies called Krona and High Res for TIFs. They're bringing their manufacturing operations here to Beverly, to the Cherry Hill area. Talk about these companies. Talk about what a TIF is for our viewers that may not understand, and talk about the benefits of bringing these kinds of companies and just in general expanding that manufacturing base here in Beverly.
That's a long answer you're asking for. What a TIF anticipates, it's a tool in a toolbox that cities and towns in the state have to attract businesses and job creation. So when you approve and award a TIF to a company, they commit to making certain investments in the community, creating more value in the property. In the case of both Krona and High Res, they're building significantly greater physical plant buildings on these sites than are already there. So they're increasing the property values, which will increase the assessed value and the property taxes that we can collect as a city. They also commit to creating new jobs. And the TIF is essentially a forbearance of new taxes. So, they pay a tax bill of A on a property today. Then they make new investments and build a new building, and the assessed value will go up. What the TIF anticipates, and both of these TIFs, and last night the City Council approved the high-res TIF. They had approved the Corona TIF some months ago. Both of these TIFs are 10-year TIFs. They provide a 10% break in the first 3 years, a 7.5% break in the next 3 years, and a 5% break for the last 4 years. What it means in application for high-res. High-res is going to bring the city, these are based on projections. So they're planning to invest about $11.5 million in building a brand new building on a parcel of land up at Cherry Hill that's been vacant since it was created, since the industrial park was created. So significant new value in the property. They're also looking to go from about 100 jobs they have now, and they're in Woburn now, moving to Beverly, 100 jobs they have now to about 260 jobs in Beverly. So job creation and new value in the property. We will take, under the projected numbers, we'll take about $2.6 million in new property taxes over the next 10 years from their investment. They'll keep about 200,000. So we'll take about 2.6, they'll keep about 200.
Yep.
And what it means annually is that they get somewhere from a $25,000 down to about a $20,000 break in taxes each year of those 10 years. But it's not taxes that are already being paid, it's the new value created. We're just going to delay a bit on some small portion of each year. Right. And that helped them make their decision to invest in Beverly as opposed to some other community. And they were looking at several communities. Right. As Secretary Ash said to me, he said, this is a positive for the city in so many ways, and it says to the life sciences industry that Beverly wants you here. Yeah. And the jobs that they're creating at high-res, the jobs they already have. Yeah. High-res, real quickly, they design and manufacture robotics equipment for use in medical testing laboratories. Yeah. So all the pharmaceutical companies, research hospitals and research medical schools, they're all clients. Right. They're all customers of high-res, and it's amazing the work they do, and they have done since they were formed in 2004.
Yeah. Well, when we got the presentation from them in City Hall, their client list looks like a who's who of the pharmaceutical and medical diagnostic. Mm-hmm. Now, over and above the tax implications, the fact that you'll have these people are going to have to shop, they're going to have to buy perhaps buy homes or rent homes, and all this economic activity. And these are not low-paying jobs. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, Mike. We saw a breakdown last night. There are some entry-level jobs that'll pay $55,000 to $100,000, but they also, probably a majority of the new jobs that they're creating will be $100,000 and up. Yep. They're heavy on engineering. Right. And interestingly, as they design these robots, the software engineering piece of it is critically important because they got to program in all the tasks, all the movements that the robotic arms are going to perform. There's one they showed us where they get this refrigeration unit, and they've got all these trays that have samples. Maybe it's tissue samples, organ samples of they've got a test for different diseases, and the robotic arm pulls the tray out and brings it over and puts it into an aspiration machine where this aspiration equipment will drop the same metered dose of this same solution in every tray, and then when it's done, the robotic arm pulls the tray out, puts it over here, goes another tray. Yep. So that's the kind of equipment that they design and use.
Yep. Now, we talked a little bit about the 1A project ending at the old municipal building, which is no longer there, and the new middle school will be transferred there in 2018, correct, in September. Yep. So that leaves the Briscoe as being surplus, if I can use that word. But you have created a MBRC, a Municipal Building Reuse Committee, which I think had its first meeting just recently. Tell us about that committee, and tell us, is their charter beyond just Briscoe, or is that primarily what they're going to be working on?
Well, we're taking a look at City Hall, the police station, and Briscoe. The question is, do we end up keeping all three assets? Do we end up needing to surplus one and sell it? There had been an assumption or an expectation that Briscoe would be sold, and maybe we will. Maybe that's the right decision, but we want to look at all three of the buildings first. If there's a way to to modernize and rehab Briscoe in a more economical, cost-effective way. It could be a great site for City Hall, the new police station, and all the school department administrative offices.
Right.
Then again, it may be that Briscoe would cost far too much for us to do anything with but sell. And I just don't know the answer yet. We do know that we need a new police station. It's the next capital project after the middle school. And we also know that City Hall has not been large enough for years to house all the municipal offices. We have municipal offices in the GAR building, up at the airport.
Right.
At the senior center, we have the health department, the rec department offices.
And likewise, the police department is spread apart.
Well, and the police department, the criminal investigations division is now up at the airport. Many of these offices were at Memorial, but they had to move out as
Right.
Memorial was getting ready to be taken down. So, it may be that as we look this over carefully, we decide Briscoe needs to be sold. In which case, then we're talking about brand new construction for a new police station, and perhaps the current police station gets renovated to be, a part of City Hall eventually. But those are the questions. We had an initial meeting, very talented group of people, a good number of volunteers, and some key department heads from the city, who all got together and met at the library. You folks taped
Right.
that first meeting, and identified so many action items that we said we're not going to schedule a second meeting until all the department heads that need to get to work on these action items can get the materials back. So we're targeting late May, early June for second meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of really important information that people need to have in front of them to make a thoughtful and sound decision about where we go with these buildings.
Mm-hmm.
If we, for example, were to move City Hall to Briscoe, we'd have to make sure that there is a next use for City Hall that's going to be something that supports and is really complementary with the downtown. Could City Hall be an inn at some point and flourish? It may be a moot point because Briscoe may not be viable for our needs.
With bocce ball courts right next door.
Hey, that could be a premium right there on the rooms.
Well, thank you for that, Mike. Now, you mentioned earlier when we were talking about some of the development projects, this is sort of a longer-term project, the so-called Bass River project. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could give us kind of a 30,000-foot view of the scope and the time frame of this project, and I'll ask our control room to put up a little image of what you'll be talking about here. So we'll see that in a second.
Okay. So in the city's master plan, there's talk of transit-oriented development in the downtown. We have been, and then the prior administration did some work with preliminarily did some work with the Bass River rezoning. So we picked it back up, and you can see on the screen, the bottom of the screen, you actually see the train bridge and the Beverly Salem Bridge coming over
Right.
the harbor, and then what you see is our downtown. And as I think we all understand, our downtown is surrounded on three sides by water, and to the left is the Bass River. There's a green line that's meant, you could call it a very sloppy rectangle, right?
Yeah.
That shows the area that we're
kind of on the east side of the Bass River.
Yeah, I mean, that area shows a currently zoned area.
Yeah.
What we're looking at is just the parcels of land from the National Grid property up through the Boulder along River Street. And so it's really just River Street addresses. It's not anything else. It's not Park Street or anything over that side. It's just the River Street addresses between National Grid and Boulder. And so we're in the process of, we've had some public meetings and some meetings with different stakeholders, businesses, residents in that area, around a proposed rezoning, draft ordinance. And that would call for mixed-use redevelopment with a real prioritization of housing. And by housing, we're talking about transit-oriented development housing right there. You think about living across the street from the train station and looking out on the Bass River, and you've got a real winner of an opportunity. And this transit-oriented development, it's where we need to go as a city. It's where the region needs to go, so that you can create needed housing without bringing in a lot of extra vehicles.
Right, exactly.
People living in a setting like that are more likely to have maybe a couple might have one car instead of two. Maybe a couple will have no cars, or a young individual, business person will have no cars. They'd rather have a Zipcar membership, which they'll, we already have some of those in the T garage, and there'll be more as the demand rises. And people with cars won't use them every day. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
If you're commuting in and out of Boston from, 10 feet from the front steps of your dwelling, where you live, you may not use your car all week long. You may only use it on the weekend. Yeah. So that's kind of, the future for I think, housing along commuter rail and transit lines. And for us in Beverly, it's a way to bring more residents into our downtown, which helps support the growth of our downtown, kind of regrowth of our downtown retail and restaurant and nightlife.
Right. Right. So it's a smart way to bring in more residential units, more people, but at the same time keeping the increase in car traffic and the pressure on the highways and roadways down. So it's a smart growth.
And it's a proposed rezoning, which means that people who already own properties there and have businesses, if they choose, they can keep on doing what they're doing. Yeah. They have the right to do so. If at some point they decide that they want to redevelop, or somebody wants to pay them for their property to redevelop, then that may be where things transition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that, Mike. Now, I I heard recently that the city's bond rating has been reviewed, and it came up very favorably by the rating agency. Can you elaborate on that? What is our bond rating, and what does that mean for the average citizen of Beverly?
Sure. Well, our bond rating is AA+, which is a very strong rating. And the stronger your bond rating, the lower the interest rates that you can borrow at, that you can issue long-term debt at. And we have been, as a city, we have been both aggressively and responsibly investing in our infrastructure for the last 25, 30 years. We've done significant work on public buildings, a lot of school projects. As you know, the middle school that we're building now will be the crowning achievement. It's the last piece. We've done the elementaries, we've done the high school, and now this is the middle school. We've done significant work on the library and City Hall, and there's more to do. So a strong bond rating allows you to borrow at lower rates. Yeah. Part of why our rating is strong is that Bryant Ailes, our finance director, and his team have been doing a tremendous job for us. And our outside audits have shown over years that there are certain steps that should be taken to strengthen our financial oversight and our systems, and we've been working hard to put all those in place, as many each year as we can. And we're getting, great feedback and acclaim for doing that from both our outside auditor each year and the bond rating agency. Mm-hmm. So we're in a good place right now with our bond rating. It is very important.
Yeah. So one way of looking at it is like a credit score for an individual for a home. So it allows you to borrow it at lower rates and so forth.
And they also check our reserves, and we've been working hard to build reserves and to ensure that during a good time we're building them. And so as economies ebb and flow, we're in a position where we'll be ready to withstand that next downturn, and that's what they look to see, is that we've socked it away and we're ready to and we've got the right type of expenditures in place. An example, going back to the paving work,
right?
I said when the economy's not as good, not as much paving work happens. Well, partly at the local level, it's because we're investing now because we can, knowing that line item can be cut when it needs to be without laying anybody off, without cutting services that people are counting on.
Yeah. Well, I know we're just about out of time, and we've covered quite a few topics here today, Mayor, and I'd like to thank you again. And I'd like to let our viewers know that you've been watching City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. Thank you for viewing.